if you could mute your mics if you're not speaking. You can do so by pressing the mic button, which is typically at the bottom of your screen. And don't worry, you'll have an opportunity to unmute and talk during the discussion section of the workshop. Also, feel free to use the chat and introduce yourselves in the chat. We also ask that people remain respectful, not only to the facilitators, but also to your fellow participants and everyone, and basically everyone, while engaging in discussion in this workshop and in the chat. So this evening's workshop is about breaking down the myths about homelessness and finding ways to have more productive discussions about shelters while supporting and respecting unhoused people. So we've been seeing, and many of us know, that there has been a drastic increase in homelessness. And unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot more anti-shelter sentiments and rhetoric, especially towards existing and new shelters that are being built and proposed at this at City Council right now. And while shelters are not the sole sort of solution to homelessness, they are a critical step in the housing spectrum that leads to long-term, adequate, and accessible housing. So we've been having these discussions at Social Planning Toronto and with our partners, and recognized there was a great need for a session like this, as well as having sort of a resource to navigate discussions about shelters and engage in shelter advocacy. So we at Social Planning Toronto have partnered with Diana to create the Talking About Homelessness guide to support you develop strong, positive messaging while engaging and organizing within your own communities or when talking to your neighbors, family members, and peers. So Diana will be doing a presentation on the guide, which I remind you will be the recorded portion of tonight, which will be followed by sort of a Q&A discussion period, which won't be recorded. So at the end of the session, we'll also be sharing a link and a QR code to our workshop feedback form. We will greatly appreciate if you're able to take a few minutes to complete the form. It's short, I promise you. It's a couple of questions. You can get it done in 1 minute or so. So next slide. So at the end of this workshop, we hope you'll be able to have a better understanding of homelessness, including knowing that it is a diverse, systemic, and solvable issue, uncover and address misinformation and myths through constructive conversations. And we hope you're able to engage in discussions where we get to hear and learn from each other's ideas and as well as our experiences. So before I pass it on to Diana, for those who don't know, Diana Chang McNally is a longtime frontline community worker and advocate advancing the rights of homeless people, particularly in encampments. As someone with lived experience of social services and being unhoused, Diana's work focuses on human rights and equity issues for people who are experiencing homelessness by advocating at the political level while still maintaining an active frontline praxis. Diana is a frequent media commentator on issues affecting the unhoused and teaches courses in community work. So Diana, I'll pass it on to you now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's frequent commentator, possibly too frequent, commenting in the news. And I'm really thrilled at how many people are actually coming to this workshop. Now, I know people are also coming from out of town. So if at points it seems a little bit Toronto-centric, I apologize, but I hope a lot of the meat of what we're actually going to talk about is transferable into your context, your community in Ontario, because I think a lot of the issues are pretty much the same issues with some, local peculiarities, I'll put it that way. But overall, we have an issue of homelessness that is honestly just Ontario-wide at this point. Um, when we're going through the session, we will again have kind of more of the discussion portion toward the end. So your name, your pronouns, if you want to add those into your little box, and so we can have that available for us to read. If we're calling on you for question period, that would be wonderful. For asking questions, we'll have a hand up function at the end. So put your hand up if there are things that you want to ask or comment on, or any experiences that you actually would like to share as well. In terms of breaks, we won't take a formal break, but again, you know yourself, you know your biology, whatever you need to do, please feel free again to step away. Again, the session, this portion will be recorded, so you won't miss anything, I guarantee you. And if there is anything you didn't catch, you can always come back to it later. Again, the recording will end once the presentation portion is ended so that people can have a safe space in which to actually share their experiences or their questions without judgment. So every time I give a workshop, I have certain rights and responsibilities that are embedded in that. So I'll just go through these briefly. Again, we're trying to create a good space for good conversations, but you do have the right to feel safe expressing your own feelings and opinions, as well as a responsibility to be aware of and to attend to the feelings and opinions of others. You have the right to ask for what you want or need. And if there are ways that this can be adjusted for you, especially in the more the discussion period, please let me know. But you also have the responsibility to participate and contribute as much as you're able. So stepping up, stepping back. You have the right to be treated with respect and dignity. In this space, I would hope in all spaces, but we know it's a lot harder than that, unfortunately. But we also have the responsibility here to treat others with dignity and respect. So listening while others are speaking. You have the right to be listened to and taken seriously, as well as the responsibility to be attentive, open, and non-judgmental toward others. You have the right to pass. So when we do get to the discussion portion, you're not obligated to speak if you don't want to. You're very, very welcome to just participate by watching and learning from others. But you also have the responsibility to self-reflect and take the opportunity to grow. You have the right to make mistakes. And I really want to underscore this because no one does this work perfectly. I've been someone who's been working in the field for well over a decade at this point. I know people have been working in this field for 20 years, even more than that. And doing this work, we all make mistakes. It's difficult, complex work a lot of the time. Talking about this issue can be very complex for people. It can be very heightening for people. So I just want to acknowledge that it's okay if we don't do everything perfectly when we're talking about homelessness. That said, we also have to be honest about our own energy and attitudes. And if you're feeling tired, again, you want to step back, by all means, you are not obligated to participate. So I want to start by talking about how we frame homelessness. And I think the best way for me to actually do that is to walk you through some of the context of homelessness in Toronto. There is such a vast amount of misinformation when we talk about homelessness, and sometimes it's really hard to get the facts, and certainly very hard to communicate those facts in a good way. But let's start there. Let's look at what homelessness actually looks like in Toronto. And again, it's not just Toronto. What we see in this city is often what we see in other parts of Ontario as well. And in fact, you may recognize some of the same patterns and issues when I'm talking in your own community. So to start, who is homeless? I think a lot of the time, again, when we talk about this and we hear a lot of the public narrative, a lot of discourse around homelessness, there is this kind of now increasingly pervasive idea that people who are unhoused are in their situation because of quote unquote mental health issues, quote unquote addiction issues. And I hope I can dispel this a little bit by again looking at how complex and diverse homelessness actually looks, again, in Toronto, but also certainly beyond our borders. Look at Indigenous people. They are 3% of Toronto's population, but they are 31% of unsheltered people. And the data that I am looking at right now is actually coming from what's called the Street Needs Assessment. Our Street Needs Assessment in the City of Toronto came out in 2024, but communities across Ontario are mandated to actually collect this data. So if you're in another municipality, this data may also be available to you through your regional council or through your municipality. So this is Toronto's context. Again, it is very similar that we see in other locations as well. But 31% of unsheltered people is certainly grossly disproportionate to the number of people overall who identify as Indigenous. And of course, we look at racialized people. Toronto is a very diverse city, so 52% of our population identify as being racialized, but still we have disproportionately more people who are unhoused and identify as racialized in the unhoused population. So 77% of people who are currently homeless in the city of Toronto identify as being racialized. And this blows my mind as well. Um, they are overwhelmingly self-identifying as Black. Black people are 9% of Toronto's population, but they are 58% of unhoused people overall in this city. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that we have folks coming here as refugees who are coming from dire circumstances, uh, things that we can't even imagine. And we're seeing a lot of folks who are coming from countries like Kenya and Uganda. In fact, I've been working on this issue for the last 2 years or more because there are levels of government who don't want to deal with the fact that we have people seeking out safety in Canada and we are not meeting the responsibility of their care. So we have lots of people who are refugees coming from Kenya and Uganda. They're coming largely as folks who are queer. So I'd say about, well, we have that here actually. 31% of folks who identify as refugees are also identifying as queer. And so there's a lot of intersection between people who are Black, who are African specifically, and also who are queer. Because in Uganda and in Kenya, there are now laws that criminalize people who identify as being queer. So these are the folks who are coming here. They're coming for safety because we kind of purport ourselves on the world stage in Toronto and Canada as being a safe place for people to come to flee conflict, to flee things like anti-LGBTQ laws that are in their homelands, in their countries. And so, again, we see this disproportionate level of people who are self-identifying as Black, who are identified as refugees as a result of this. And instead of providing the care that they need, we're giving them very little and they're ending up in the shelter system instead. So I think that's an important clarifying context is that when we look at these numbers, there are certain reasons why, kind of in the larger geopolitical climate, that we see some of the people that we do. When we look at queer folks, they're about 8% of Toronto's population, people who self-identify, but 22% of all unhoused people, so about one-fifth. And of course, we see a lot of seniors and a lot of youth. And together they comprise about 10% each. Seniors are actually the fastest growing population of people who are homeless. And we're seeing this not just in Toronto, but we're seeing this across Ontario. We're seeing this across Canada because when they retire, their retirement income isn't enough. Folks who are on OAS, folks who are on GIS, these income supplement programs that kick in once you reach retirement age are not enough for people to actually afford rent. And so we're seeing a lot of seniors who may have been living in a place for 20 years, 15 years, whose rents are very low, but we're making it easier to evict people and landlords actively want people with low rents evicted so that they can raise the rents and make more profits. And what we're seeing as a result of that, it's actually more and more seniors who are ending up on the street. So again, there is that pervasive idea that the folks who are homeless in the city of Toronto, homeless elsewhere in Ontario and in Canada, are all people with a quote unquote mental illness or quote unquote who may be an addict. This is not, this is a stereotype, right? We see all kinds of people, but we also see the intersection of things like racism, of colonialism, uh, of transphobia that actually play into who becomes homeless in our city. And I hope this clarifies again that there's just no one type of person, but many people, again, with these intersecting isms that create the context of homelessness that we see. Now, importantly, real important is why are people homeless? And again, I think there's a lot of pervasive ideas around this that to me are rooted in stereotypes, are rooted in fear, and not just to me, but the evidence shows this, that this isn't actually what's going on. And so when we look at why people are homeless, the number one issue that is cited is affordability. That's in the city of Toronto. It's very similar in other locations across Ontario. Sudbury, it's 44% of people who are homeless identify as being unable to pay their rent. That's a primary reason that they have become homeless. In the city of Toronto, 41% of people say the number one reason why they become homeless is because they just don't have enough money to afford housing. So, again, this is talking about a systems level issue. People don't have enough income to actually pay for rent. This has nothing to do with substance use. This has nothing to do with mental health challenges. Um, overtly, it's not causal. What we're suggesting by that is that people did something wrong. They ended up homeless as a result of that. But we live in a society where our wages are not increasing nearly enough, and yet rents are skyrocketing, right? So affordability is actually the number one reason why people are homeless. Makes sense to me, but it is confusing for some folks. Gender-based violence is also something that's really important to note here. And so 15% of people who are homeless in the city of Toronto identify gender-based violence as a reason as to why they have actually become unhoused. So abuse, conflict with a spouse or partner, and people unable to actually find a safe, secure place to be, and instead are ending up on the street, ending up in shelters as a result of that. So this is also an epidemic in Ontario and Canada more broadly that is not named nearly enough, and certainly not in the context of homelessness as well. But it is a huge factor in why people become homeless in our city. Again, it is not because they did something wrong, it's because they're trying to stay safe. And this is what we see. And it's unfortunate that people obviously end up in this kind of situation because what they deserve, obviously, is safe housing and shelter, and yet that is so difficult for them to actually find. Unmet health needs are also a huge contributing factor. So 75% of people, that's overwhelming, have identified in the city of Toronto that the number one thing that they need help with is a family doctor. They don't have access to primary care. They don't have access to any kind of general health care. So they have intersecting and unmet health needs that get worse and worse and worse the longer that they become homeless, because homelessness actually takes a massive toll on your physical well-being. And on top of that, 64% of people who are currently homeless in the city of Toronto have identified that they have more than one health challenge. And, I've been doing this work for a long time. When someone stays homeless, we're talking about over 6 months into years, sometimes decades, those health challenges start to build up. You start to have more of them. It's highly disabling to be homeless. And that's something that we often don't name, is that being homeless will disable you. It will. And it does get worse the longer that you are in that state. So there are all these unmet health needs, and especially for people who are on the street and they have all of these challenges, it is then harder for them to find and secure housing as a result of this. So homelessness is really this awful trap where you get kind of locked into a situation where it takes a huge toll on your physical, on your mental, and your emotional health. And at the same time, the worse that your health gets, the harder it is for you to actually secure and sustain permanent housing. So, these are the real major reasons as to why people become homeless, which again, I think is really counterintuitive to a lot of the narrative that we hear in the media from certain pundits. But it's important context for you to know when you are communicating about these issues. And here I want to show you just how unaffordable it is to actually sustain your housing. And so these metrics are from the city of Toronto, so they won't be applicable to elsewhere. But there is nowhere in Ontario that has affordable rents. That's just a fact. So in the city of Toronto, a bachelor unit, this is not a one bedroom, this is a bachelor unit of any size. The average rent is about $1,500. If we look at people on social assistance, so Ontario Works, um, you have $390 a month to spend on rent. That's it. $1,500, less than $400. And then we look at people who do live with a disability who are on the Ontario Disability Support Program, and they have less than $600 to spend on rent. And yet again, the average for a bachelor is $1,500. So when I talk about unmet health needs, I talk about homelessness being disabling. If you weren't already living with a disability, if you're suddenly on one of these programs, or you were before, it is going to, again, become very, very, very hard for you to find any kind of housing that you can actually afford. So disability, because we will not raise the rates to something that's livable for people, it traps people into homelessness as a result, poverty and homelessness. That's what happens, right? So this is a huge contributing factor to, again, why people become homeless in the city of Toronto and elsewhere. As I mentioned again, those social assistance rates are incredibly low. ODSP, OW, but also GIS. Again, as I mentioned, seniors are increasingly becoming homeless. So that social assistance that is available to seniors is also not enough. We also have massively increasing unemployment in Ontario. We have 700,000 people across Ontario who are unemployed. And if you know what the definition of unemployed is, it's someone who doesn't have a job who is looking for work. This does not encompass people who aren't actively looking for work because they've given up for whatever different reasons that may be the case. So unemployment is increasing, job losses are increasing, and at the same time, wages remain low. So social assistance, wages, incomes overall are not actually enough to afford housing. We have very inadequate rent control in Ontario, and it is actually getting worse. So, if we don't have people who are able to sustain decent, safe rental housing because their landlord wants them out so they can charge more money, we have loopholes, we have weak rent control protections that allow landlords to be able to do that, which is obviously, to me at least, extremely, extremely wrong. And of course, we financialize the land. This is very much a colonial concept that anyone can even own the land, that its value is not that it sustains you, but rather it's something that we can sell, that we can profit off of through rents, for example. So, our entire scheme of thinking about property rights and the land itself is really about monetizing the land and extracting as much wealth as we can from people on it, including and especially renters. As I mentioned, people are not connected to a family doctor. They're not connected to healthcare. There is a lack of access to healthcare. And there is an inability to address these very disabling health conditions that arise when you become homeless, let alone the trauma, the emotional toll it takes when you are living through homelessness. And I always say, when you are homeless, this is like 24/7 trauma that you're experiencing. It is ongoing. It isn't in the past. It is very much in the present. And of course, we have very inadequate supportive housing, not nearly enough for people who require it. And for those who are, again, they have multiple health challenges that build up as they go on and continue to be homeless. At a certain point, you will need supportive housing. So for folks who are chronically homeless, who've been homeless a long time, that simply doesn't exist at the level that is actually required for them. In an ideal situation, people don't become homeless at all, let alone end up there for years and years and years on end. But because they do, we have a greater need for supportive housing as a result. And as I had named before, racism, discrimination, colonialism, homophobia, transphobia, all of these things coalesce to ensure that certain specific communities become overrepresented among people who are homeless. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about harm reduction, about substances, and about mental health, because again, what we hear increasingly, and especially from the provincial government, is that people need to be put into treatment beds. We need to force them into drug treatment. Not everybody uses drugs, and the reason why they become homeless isn't drugs. It's because, again, as we've seen, people cannot afford their housing. That is the overarching number one reason why people become homeless. And we can see that here. This comes again from the 2024 Street Needs Assessment from the City of Toronto. Again, you see that the number one reason that people cite they're becoming homeless is not enough income for housing. But if we look down this list, we see, I have it arrowed in the red, mental health issue, 8%. Substance use issue, 7%. These are, in the grand scheme, very, very small numbers of people who cite this as the reason that they became homeless. It's not to say that it doesn't happen, but again, I think that persistent narrative is that everybody is becoming homeless because they use drugs or they just simply can't manage their mental health. This shows this is not the case. And again, affordability is the number one issue. Um, I mentioned this already. So, you know, before becoming homeless, we see that people are not citing mental health barriers or not citing substance use as contributing factors to their becoming homeless. But, and this is important, and the distinction is so important, these things start to become more apparent as people become homeless. So once people become homeless in the city of Toronto, 44% report living with mental health challenges. That is a huge leap, right? And I think it goes to show that, again, homelessness takes a huge emotional and mental health toll on people who are being forced to experience it. 25% report living with substance use challenges. So we see that people, because they're not connected to healthcare, because they don't have trauma support, because they don't have housing, they will use drugs in order to feel okay for a moment to mitigate pain because they don't have access to a doctor who can actually prescribe things to them. And to just feel like you're not trapped in a situation that you are for at least a few hours, few minutes, right? So these are very, very important to note that prior to becoming homeless, I'll just reiterate it again, mental health and substance use are not contributing factors at a large scale, very small scale. But again, once you are in homelessness, we start to see that people struggle with drugs and with mental health as a result of that. So the problem isn't that people have mental health barriers. The problem isn't that people use drugs. The problem is that they become homeless. That's what's going on. And I think that's really, really important information to have on hand, especially when you're having conversations with people, because there's a lot of presumptions about why people end up the street, as I'm sure you know, because that's why we're all here today. And, I think it's really important to note that it's not easy to manage mental health or substance use when you don't have a stable place to be. And I also have to point out the context of drug treatment in Ontario. I think it's often talked about like it's this panacea. If we just get people into drug treatment, everything will be resolved, and then they'll be productive citizens again who will be housed permanently and be normal like the rest of us. Quotes on all of this, right? But drug treatment in Ontario is actually not regulated. There are no standards for drug treatment at all, which people don't realize. And so it is also mostly privatized. So think about that, unregulated and privatized. That means that they don't have to fulfill any medical requirements. They absolutely don't. A lot of these places are more like spas where they charge you $15,000 and you're supposedly going to rehab, which is not actually the case. So it's not evidence-based, it doesn't have standards, and it is a lot of money for people to access drug treatment. So when we talk about it as this is what people need, we also have to look at what drug treatment actually looks like in Ontario and realize that this is an extremely broken system. There isn't enough evidence-based and voluntary drug treatment for people who would actually want it. And what I've seen working with folks on the street is that I have people who will ask, I want to go to detox. I want to stop using drugs or I want to start using less drugs. So they can get a detox bed. A detox bed is 2 weeks. And it says exactly it says in the name. You detox from the substance that you've been using. And in an ideal situation, you would then transfer into drug treatment. Because there are not enough voluntary evidence-based drug treatment beds, especially for people who don't have $15,000 to go to a private spa drug treatment center, they can wait 6 months, 8 months, a year before a bed is actually available. And the thing about that is that in that entire period between when you've done T-Tox and when you've actually entered a drug treatment bed, you cannot use drugs. And if you do, you will no longer be eligible for that treatment bed. I'm serious. So when people talk about they just need to go do this, what system are they talking about? This is not a functional system, and it is not going to actually support people to stop using substances if this is what it actually looks like with their trajectory. What people need is safe, stable shelter. They need care. And if treatment is something that they're ready for, that they want to access, it has to be voluntary and available. And it is frankly not. And so, again, I think this is important for you to know because this is often argued as why, people are homeless. The reasons why, they can't be like the rest of us are because they haven't gone through drug treatment. But we often don't talk about what a broken system that actually is. Now, harm reduction is something that's very much maligned. They often talk about us giving free drugs to people, prolonging their deaths, so to speak. I often hear this kind of language. But harm reduction isn't new. This is over 40 years of research. It's completely evidence-based All around the world, there's been research. It's a very effective public health intervention that saves lives. Again, if we're talking about drug treatment as a solution, well, you can't access treatment even if you want to if you're dead, right? That's just a fact. And no one, doesn't matter what you've done, should be relegated to death because someone judges who you are and your actions and behaviors. And in fact, this is the law. So, under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we have something called the right to life. It's Section 7 of the Charter, the right to life, liberty, and freedom of the person. And so, the right to life means the right to remain alive. Governments cannot put in policy that kills you. That can be challenged invoking the charter and section 7 of the charter again, which is the right to life. So doesn't matter what you've done, you have the right to be safe and alive. But this is often not talked about, and it is not a popular argument a lot of the time because people want just things to instantly change instead of actually honoring people's rights and their autonomy. I think importantly too, when we talk about mental health and substance use in the context of a diagnosis, these are also actually considered disabilities under the law. These are protected in the Ontario Human Rights Code. These are protected by the Charter. It is considered a disability because of legal precedent, and so you have to look at how this is a violation of accessibility if we talk about taking away harm reduction as well. I could go on, but let's talk a little bit about solutions. So that's a bit of a background on the context of homelessness in Toronto. And again, I think, a lot of that is transferable to Ontario more broadly, but, we talk about homelessness as a solvable issue. Well, I talk about homelessness as a solvable issue. I think a lot of people think about it as being this intractable issue that will just never end. We just have to live with it because that's just how it is these days. But it is solvable. And what does a solution actually look like? Well, it isn't about putting people into drug treatment and suddenly everything is fine. The other thing about that is sometimes people do go through treatment and then they end up back on the street because there's no housing available for them. If homelessness is not about individuals failing, it's not. It just never has been about that. It is a systems issue and therefore it requires systemic solutions. And so we do need broad policy change. And almost all of this exists at the provincial level. We blame municipalities a lot, and that's not inherently wrong to do, but they don't control most of the policy levers that create the conditions of homelessness that we see in our city and across Ontario. Most of this comes from the province. So affordability, access to healthcare, housing. The policies that are currently in place in Ontario create the conditions of homelessness and, in fact, have exploded homelessness across the province in the last few years since Doug Ford essentially took power. So, since 2018, we've seen a massive increase to the point that last year there were at least recorded, and there will be many people who are not recorded, 81,000 people who were homeless in Ontario last year. 81,000 people. That is massive. And in fact, we've seen homelessness double between 2022 and 2024. And that's not because suddenly everyone became a bad person and couldn't take care of themselves. It's because we have these systems in place, these policies in place that create the gaps that people actually fall through by not addressing their healthcare needs, by not addressing their housing needs, and by making things so unaffordable across the province. And so when we talk about systemic solutions, shelters are an important interim solution. A very important interim solution is emergency shelter. So what do shelters do? Well, in an ideal world, and I know this is complex, and I think we're moving to a better space, at least in the city of Toronto, but in a perfect world, shelters are an interim emergency solution to homelessness that allows people access to a safe space where you can actually sleep regularly. When you're out on the street, and I know this again from working with people in encampments, people who are just sleeping on the sidewalk, you don't generally sleep for more than 1 or 2 hours at a time. You can't because something wakes you up. Your anxiety kicks in, you wake up. And so you don't get that 7, 8 hours of restful sleep that people need and what they deserve. And instead, you are constantly in the state of anxiety. And you know how you feel when you don't sleep. What is that like for you? I know I'm very irritable. I'm not able to do many of the things that I should be able to do simply because I don't have enough rest. Emergency shelters allow you to finally rest. get that sleep that you need without being anxious that something is going to happen to you overnight. And what I love about what's happening in the city of Toronto is that we are building shelters that make it more able for people to have nice, restful sleep. So smaller scale, more private, not 100 people in one room all crammed together, but there is more partitioning and more safety and a bit more intimacy as well because you'll know the other people in the shelter instead of it being, again, 100, 200 other people who may be there. So sleep is super important and something that we often don't talk about, but it is such an important part of being healthy and well is being able to get that full night's sleep. Shelters also allow you to store your personal belongings without being afraid that someone's going to take them, that they're going to be thrown out. Your encampment, you're being evicted, and suddenly they're in a trash compactor. You don't have to worry about that. So if you have important belongings, you have somewhere that you can put them, lockable. Again, this is what the City of Toronto is moving toward, is actual spaces where you have your own private storage that is very much your own, not in one big room where anyone can kind of access it, but beside your bed. And as well, you can get regular meals and nutrition. This is also something that's really hard for people to do because we don't have enough places for people to actually be able to access good, nutritious meals most of the time. A lot of the meal programs that are available for people are concentrated in downtown Toronto. I know lots of folks who are out in Scarborough where they got to travel for an hour and a half to actually get to a meal program in order to just eat lunch. And then not soon after that, they have to travel again to go find somewhere to get dinner. Right? So you worry less about this, constantly spending your time just trying to feed yourself for survival, and you can actually access that in a shelter. Shelters are also incredibly important doorways into other essential services. And if you're living outdoors, you will not necessarily have the same connections that you would have in a shelter, which brings them together into a hub, whether that's by direct service from the agency itself or whether it's through partnerships with other agencies who bring workers in to support people with their particular needs. So you can find support with social services, so housing help, case management support, and also, again, importantly, health services, primary care, harm reduction, nursing care. These things are available in that space so that we can also address people's particular social needs as well as their healthcare needs. And so important is that shelters are your primary pathway into permanent housing. This is again where we do all of the legwork to make sure that you have all of your ID done, all your applications done, and you again can get support to find permanent housing. Now, what again the city of Toronto has been doing, it's a change in the shelter system, is that they're making that service more available to people. In the past, we've seen fewer housing workers. It's more difficult for people to get attached to housing, and we're investing more in those workers so that people can get that support right away once they actually enter the shelters. So, when people say, "What do shelters do?" I don't understand. There's a lot in a shelter that is very much about stabilizing somebody, just in terms of their immediate emergency health needs, in terms of their longer term goals, and then just things like nutrition, getting connected to a housing worker, etc. So important to help stabilize people and then again connect them to the essential supports that they need to have healthy lives in permanent housing. Now, shelter safety, I know, is an ongoing concern. There are a lot of folks, and rightfully so, have been traumatized. Well, not rightfully so, but rather the way they feel about shelters is, absolutely valid. They've been traumatized by living in shelters. And we often see that people live in encampments as a result. And so in the city of Toronto, we currently have about 300 encampments. A lot of these folks have had terrible experiences in the shelter system. And of course, encampment residents have an absolute legal right. You should know this as well to shelter and housing offers that are not just any old shelter and housing offer, but something that's actually truly accessible to them. And what the City of Toronto is attempting to do is actually create better shelter. And so there are 20 new shelters that are going to be built across the City of Toronto. We've already started to engage in that work. And they are predicated on being more accessible and being safer for people. So this isn't to say that this is going to solve the issue for people who've had intensely traumatizing experiences in the shelter system. They have an absolute right to remain wherever they are until we can offer something that is actually accessible to them. Again, that is actually the law. But the City of Toronto is taking steps to actually make sure that shelters are not, the kinds of places that we would malign in the past. So they've reduced their size, They're about 50 to 80 beds each, these new shelters. They're embedded across the city and in different neighborhoods because homelessness isn't just downtown. It never was, but it's increasingly all over the city. So, I'm from north of Tobico. I'm actually from Doug Ford's Riding, if you can believe that. So sad. That's where I grew up. But I see encampments out there now too. Just to say that people in the community are becoming homeless, and now we're bringing shelters to where they are, the neighborhoods where they already exist, where they prefer to be, to make sure that they can remain in their communities. There's also a shelter safety plan that's been developed, and that has been based on research done by CAMH, which is addressing the concerns not just of staff, but also of people in the shelter system and the kinds of supports that they need to actually feel safe being in a shelter. And of course, what's great, my favorite part, is that the shelters that we were building are actually able to be converted into permanent housing, which is fantastic. So this is a long game in looking at if we can, I hope we can, finally start to see reductions in homelessness, then we can start to convert some of these spaces into actual permanent housing for people. And so I hope some of that helps to kind of frame what homelessness looks like. Again, I know a lot of that is Toronto specific, but a lot of what I talked about is really kind of pervasive across Ontario as well. You can't talk about homelessness if we don't know the context of homelessness. And so the important points I want you to come away with is that homelessness is diverse. There is no typical homeless person. Every kind of person can become homeless, and I've seen it. The two people who always stick out in my head are I met a real estate agent who had become homeless, and he was living in one of those like public storage PS storage sheds. And I remember he would come into the drop-in and he would be wearing a Rolex watch, he would be wearing a Gucci shirt, but he was homeless. He had nowhere to stay. He just had the remnants of when he actually had money and was still, dressing like that so that he could try to continue to do his job. I think about him. I think about a human rights lawyer that I had met who actually became homeless as well. So every kind of person, not just your identity, but also, your socioeconomic background, your education, none of these things preclude that you will never become homeless. It's very diverse when we look at homeless people. And so it's really important that we don't stereotype and just show one kind of person and suggest that this is what all homeless people are like. So I encourage you to not use images and narratives that reinforce those stereotypes. Typically, an older man in his 50s, white, on the street is the image that gets purported again and again. But homelessness doesn't just look like that. It looks like many, many different people. So that's important to note. When we're framing homelessness as well, is always, always, always frame it as a systemic issue. This is not about someone being a bad person. This is not about them failing or having some kind of innate personality flaw that led to them becoming homeless. It has nothing to do with that. People become homeless because we don't have systems that actually support them. They fall through the gaps. So always frame everything you can through that lens, not about people pulling themselves out of homelessness, not about, people falling on bad times and then they made bad decisions, but rather we have gaps in our social safety net, and this is why people become homeless. And this is what agencies I find do really poorly. A lot of us do very poorly, is not just considering homelessness an intractable, permanent feature of our society. It is a solvable social issue. And in fact, last year, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, we call it AMO for short, actually gave a dollar figure for how much it would cost to end homelessness in Ontario. And it was just over $11 billion. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but you look at what this province is spending money on, and they could absolutely commit those resources over a 10-year period to end homelessness in Ontario, but they won't. But it is solvable. There is a dollar figure attached to this, and the right policies could actually end it. So don't talk about it if you can, as if it's something that we just can't do anything about. We can solve it. It just requires the political willpower and the right resources to do it, and we know exactly what those are. Now, when you're talking about homelessness with friends and neighbors, I know it's not always easy. I'm very fundamentally aware of this. And again, this is a kind of topic that is very heightening for a lot of people. People get very invested and quite emotionally charged when they're actually talking about this issue. It strikes people in a way that other things don't necessarily, hit them. And so, I want to acknowledge that when we do have these conversations, they can be very tense and sometimes very anxiety inducing and high level. So I want to let you know that it's not easy. It's not easy for me either. And so there is no like natural way to, go through your day and have these conversations and not have that kind of just in the background because of how emotionally charged it can be. But there are two approaches that I take when I'm doing this work. And I really want to be clear that they're not mutually exclusive. And that, if people gravitate toward one approach, it doesn't mean they're better or worse than anyone else. It's just what the kind of place that people are coming from. But the two approaches that I generally take when I talk about this are the community-oriented approach and the self-benefit approach. So the community-oriented approach is for people who are, really motivated by the idea of working with others, about collaboration, about the collective good. And, you may know somebody or believe that they might be kind of more inclined to this because of their history with community organizing. Maybe they do volunteerism, even charity work. They have particular religious affiliations. Or it's just something that they may have vocalized to you or that you've seen online. People might be more inclined toward this if those are the kinds of signals and signifiers that they're sending out there. With the self-benefit approach, this is for people who consider themselves as more self-reliant. And so they're more motivated by protecting what they have, by personal security, and just about having not just a stable life for themselves, but a stable environment more broadly, and success as well. Feeling like you can continually climb up the ladder and do better and have a better, healthier, safer life that you want to have, right? And this can be expressed not exclusively, and I don't want to stereotype here either, but through business interests. Sometimes I hear this kind of approach or use this kind of approach if someone has young children. They may have apprehensions about safety for their kids. I don't label them as inherently bad for that. They just may be questioning, maybe unsure, maybe have misinformation. But the self-benefit approach can sometimes work better in that context. And interestingly, sometimes with people who have experiences of homelessness and social services, I actually used to be this person. So when I was homeless as a teenager, and then I wasn't, I used to think that I did it, that I, pulled up my bootstraps, and that it was all because of my hard work that I was no longer homeless. I was the guy who would judge other people. So, when we talk about, whoa, how can anyone think like that if they've gone through it? I think you want to believe that something you did made it possible for you to not be in that situation anymore. But what I didn't acknowledge, what a lot of people don't acknowledge, is that they might have had the right networks, people in their corner supporting them. There's privilege that we often have as well that we don't always acknowledge. And, there's just like a tiny little modicum of luck that can sometimes be in there. But it's often because of supports that we have in our external environment that kind of put us in the situation where we're not homeless anymore, but we often don't want to acknowledge that. So interestingly, this kind of sentiment is something that often resonates with people who do have their own experiences of homelessness. I'll go a little bit more into depth into kind of the community-oriented messaging. And so, the message might be safe, accessible, decent shelter makes our neighborhoods healthier for everyone. When we have housing for all, communities are safer. And so, the kinds of messages that we're seeing on one side of the screen, what kind of connects them all is this idea of the welfare of the broader community. It's about shared success. It's about how when one group thrives, all of us thrive. Our safety is interconnected, our well-being is interconnected, and we can't silo ourselves off and pretend it's anything but that. So that's the kind of messaging that kind of plays off of or builds off of that kind of inherent way of thinking behind it. And, again, I think it's important that we're not trying to, compete here. It's not about competing interests. It's not about people's competing rights, the rights of children versus the rights of homeless people. That's a false argument, actually. When we don't have homeless people, everybody is safer. That's just a fact, right? As well, kinds of messaging that you might be using in the community-oriented approach. Everyone deserves safe, accessible, and decent shelter until we have housing for all. No one in our communities should be left behind. They deserve safe shelter. This is about social responsibility, civic duty. And a lot of people are motivated by wanting to do something. I get people all the time asking me, how can I help? What can I do? And so one thing you can do is communicate this in your messaging and engage other people who believe in that civic duty, that social responsibility we all have to each other. This messaging is really predicated on the idea that safer societies are built by everybody, not just governments shaping things, but all of us doing our part, big and small, to make sure that this is a safe place for everybody who's here. With the self-benefit messaging, again, this is not bad people. This is not bad messaging. It's just acknowledging where people's ideas, their fears may actually be originating from. A stable home for others means a more secure neighborhood. Reducing homelessness improves safety for your family, for businesses, for everyone. If we want to see less visible homelessness in our communities, we need to house everyone because you're tired of looking at homeless people. I digress. This is really about personal safety. It's about security. It's about no longer seeing the problem visibly in your environment every single day. And, one way or another, I think we all feel like that. We don't want to see homelessness anymore because from my perspective, I just want people to have a safe, decent life. For others, it can trigger fear. It can trigger anxieties. And again, those anxieties can come from past experiences as well. So, we have to be mindful about how we judge people with this particular perspective. But what's important here is that when we use this kind of self-benefit messaging, talking about security, talking about safety, again, we don't want to engage in false competitions between parents and children and homeless people because these are not mutually exclusive. It's a false binary, and homeless people are not making children unsafe. That just is not actually how things work. So don't give in to that kind of messaging. Don't reinforce those stereotypes that homeless people are criminal, that they are going to cause safety issue, and instead emphasize the safety of everybody with the slant more toward how it can benefit the person that you're actually engaged in a conversation with. Excuse me. Giving people safe shelter reduces strain on the services you rely on, like emergency healthcare and police. And it's true. There is no more expensive place than anyone can live than out on the street. It's true. What you pay for in policing and social services and healthcare is astronomical versus what it costs to actually put someone in safe, decent housing. It's the most expensive place you can live is out on the street. But with the kind of messaging in this kind of vein that we're seeing on one side of the screen, this is about personal gain. If we're no longer out there policing homeless people, that means police can do things like solve serious crimes instead. That's a gain for you. And so it's interesting because a lot of the perspective of both the community-oriented and self-benefit messaging is kind of inherently coming from the same ideas. It's just coming from different sides of the same idea. So the emphasis here is on personal gain, but it's still on just overall the betterment for everyone as well. So, again, these are just some examples. But I do want to say, when you're having these conversations, don't come from a place of trying to win. We're not trying to win an argument. And when we set ourselves up like this, and I get this from the other side all the time, people want to challenge me and they want to win and they want to make me look silly. Uh, this is just not how we engage in these conversations in good faith. You can't have a conversation in good faith if you're already positing it as a competition. So we're trying to have open conversations. We're trying to do our best not to be judgmental, not to bring personal criticism into it. And if someone attacks you, is that going to make you see their perspective? Is that going to change your heart, your mind? No. And certainly when we attack others, that's not going to bring them to how we're thinking about things. It just doesn't work that way. And in fact, it furthers the divide usually if we start to kind of devolve into personal attacks. So when we're doing this, I always think about three kind of buckets of how to have these conversations. Focus on how people are feeling. Somebody is feeling apprehensive. They are genuinely worried about safety for their kids, and not because they hate homeless people, but because they've been fed through the media, through their neighbors, that homeless people are dangerous. They may not entirely believe that or believe that at all, but they're investigating and they're asking. And so that apprehension, those feelings, address how people are feeling, um, first and foremost. And then, to address how people are feeling, validating certain feelings, focus on the facts. Give people the evidence that shows what can actually work, what homelessness looks like, what the solutions are, and then focus on the personal. So I often bring in personal narratives from my work, stories of how I've been engaging, with people out on the street. You may not have those kinds of stories, but you can talk about your stories of just, interactions that you've had with homeless folks, what you've seen in your neighborhood, how you've been having conversations with some of your neighbors who are like, we just shouldn't have homelessness in the city at all. We should actually have housing for everybody. So, I often think about those three buckets. And, if I'm going to sum it up, it's right on the screen. Address how someone feels, their fears and anxieties by using facts and compelling stories. That's how you actually start to bring people on side. Um, what's important about this is that I'm not talking about having a conversation with somebody who's already made up their mind, somebody who wants to be bigoted, somebody who wants to personally attack you, and anyone who thinks like you. Those are not people who are engaging in good faith. When I talk about having these conversations, I am talking about people who are open to a real conversation, who can ask questions, but also haven't made up their mind, or who want to actually engage in a fight with you. Those are not the people I'm talking about. And you are not obligated to have conversations with people who do want to pick a fight, who do want to engage in bigotry, who do not want to actually talk about the issues. I am not suggesting that you do that at all. If you are locked into a conversation like that, what I do is I just walk away. Um, because I have a certain level of power and privilege, I will shut down bigotry, and I will say, you're clearly not interested in having a real conversation. I would like to have a real conversation with you, but it just doesn't feel like that's the direction we're going in. I just walk away. So just so you know, this is not about getting locked into having a conversation with somebody who is going to be really awful to you and about homelessness more generally. Just for some general messaging tips. So, you know, I often think about what's the angle that I want to talk about something. Who am I trying to persuade? Am I talking to a parent of a young child? Am I talking to a group, like a neighborhood association? And how do I gear my messages toward them? So, what is the kind of language that I'm using? If this is not in real life, it's an online conversation, what platforms am I using? And I often think about, what do I really want to communicate here? What's the most important thing that I want to communicate to people? What are the main points? And generally speaking, if you are having a conversation, you don't want to get into all the deep nuances of homelessness, but generally stick to main talking points. And I would say no more than three is the best way to go about it, especially when you're talking to the public, or if you have formed a neighborhood organization and you have your social media, you're engaged in talking to other folks in the neighborhood. Repeating yourself, I know it's painful, is actually really, really important. I used to think that I could say something once and everyone got it. And I realized that that's not how it works. You have to constantly repeat yourself in order to get messages to stick with people. And this is actual psychology. We form our realities not on the basis of evidence, but on hearing things repeatedly. Interestingly, that is actually how we form our realities is through repetition. So it's really important to actually weirdly repeat yourself ad nauseum in your conversations, but also again in more of your public messaging. And it's also good, again, if you're kind of doing this work, having these conversations, is to anticipate questions from people. And you can't always anticipate what they're going to ask, but you'll notice certain trends, certain things that people will repeatedly ask. And you can start to anticipate that and have answers ready for when that might actually happen. Now, in terms of organizing for change with your neighbors, uh, I would say, this is not as hard as I think people think it is. It can seem really daunting. When we talk about organizing with people, it seems like this like whole infrastructure and effort. And, in some cases it can be, but I'm really talking about organizing at really local neighborhood level stuff. And when you're talking about, organizing a local neighborhood group, lots of people have done it in the city. And I'll show you a list later of people who are already doing this around issues of homelessness, issues of shelters. But it starts with having good conversations with people in your neighborhood. So, all the stuff that I talked about of what homelessness looks like in the city, of all the policies and issues that kind of underpin why people become homeless, about starting to have good conversations and the two different approaches that you can take with having that conversation. those conversations become the basis for a neighborhood organization, for your own local organizing efforts. It's about going and talking to people in real life. And I can't stress that enough. Some of it you can do online, but really go out there and talk to your neighbors. Have good conversations whenever and wherever you can. And you'll find, I find, that when you start to have those conversations, you kind of start to naturally form coalitions and groups, people that you will talk to about these issues. And sometimes they become formalized. Lots of people have neighborhood chats. It's essentially the same thing. But if we're talking about organizing around shelters and homelessness, essentially you're iterating something similar to that, right? Just having good conversations and then starting to form little networks on the basis of that. So I would say if you are looking to form your own kind of local organizing group around things like shelters, homelessness, harm reduction, all you really need, and don't be scared of this, it's just one other person to start. One other collaborator. And I've done it like this before, where it's just me being like, I can't be the only one who thinks like this. There's got to be someone else around here who has similar ideas, who maybe wants to work on something bigger. And I find one other person, just one, and I just start to talk to them. And we start to think about how we want to engage more broadly in our community. So I often iterate a meeting, usually with that one collaborator, and we can kind of just figure out how we want to do it, where we want to have it. But I think importantly is that if you're just looking to start up a neighborhood organization, find somebody and then try to have a meeting and go through your networks, whether that is closed, you want to go through particular channels and ask particular people, or whether it's open to the community. Find a time and location to meet. Just focus on the one meeting. Don't focus on your grand scheme of everything you're going to change and what that's going to look like. Find one other person and then just find a place to meet that is accessible for people. And then prototype what that meeting is going to look like. What do you want to talk about? Do you have things like snacks available to people? Is there childcare that you maybe want to think about? Is it a child-friendly space for parents who want to participate and maybe have small children with them? Think about how to make that meeting accessible for people and also a welcoming environment for them. And think about what you want to talk about. And I think importantly, don't have to get it right the first time. This stuff, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we all make mistakes with this. So it doesn't have to be this like hyper strategic organizing effort that you're getting into. It's literally just finding a few people, having a chat, and seeing how you can create betterness essentially in your neighborhood through your organization, whatever loosely that may look like. As you continue to organize, though, I'm going to say the most important thing to keep your efforts going is to celebrate when you make wins. And we often don't celebrate when we're doing this kind of work. We're often so embroiled in our own anger, embroiled in how we want to change everything and just, reverse homelessness altogether. That is the longest of the long games to be playing. And so to keep this work sustainable, as you were kind of creating and forming these groups, celebrate every win that you can, even if it's actually just forming the group itself. If you can show these wins, if you can celebrate, I guarantee you that people will want to participate. What doesn't work, and I'll say this from my own experience, is when you don't do that. When you just have endless conversations about things and there's no action, but also no celebration or joy built into it. You'll notice that people start to drop off of meetings. They no longer engage. But if you make it a joyful thing where you celebrate when you actually do make achievements, however small, again, just forming as a group, I guarantee you that people will want to come back and they'll want to engage more. So that's my little tip of when you're actually considering organizing with your neighbors. And as I said, you don't necessarily have to do that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of organizations across the city of Toronto, and I'm sure wherever you're coming from, whatever municipality you're in, where there is already kind of infrastructure for this. There are people who are already doing this at a very grassroots level. Um, I will say in the city of Toronto, we got lots, and this is not even a fulsome list. So if you're tuning in from the city of Toronto, here are some places where I'm going to direct you to go chat with folks if they're in your neighborhood. So there's the Etobicoke Lakeshore Shelter Coalition. We also have the Leslieville Harm Reduction Coalition. Sorry? We'll leave the questions at the end, or maybe that was just an accidental unmute. Oakwood Fawn. There's also Supportive Parkdale for All. I'm in Parkdale. This is a group that I'm working with. We have West End Welcomes, Willowdale Neighborly Community, the Moss Park Coalition. And if you're looking for a place that's a bit more citywide, there's also the Shelter and Housing Justice Network. And all of these groups are organizing already around issues of harm reduction and in support of infrastructure like shelters to actually address homelessness. So, take a photo, take a screen cap. I'm sure we can also send out the PowerPoint after this presentation. That's no problem at all. But there's lots of places to be looking. So I do kind of just want to actually, I think I did good time. I did do good time. It's just a little bit after 8. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Ta-da! Because I actually want to start having some real good conversations with you folks, because I'm sure people aren't tuning